Hi, my name is Margaret Riesen. I was born in Australia and I grew up in a small town in Switzerland, in a small farming village, where most people grew their own food. My grandparents had a small farm. My grandparents were poor and they grew most of what they ate. They had bees, they had chickens, they had fresh eggs, we had fresh butter. And our diet was really one, even though my grandparents were poor, our diet was one that we associate today with privilege, because everything was fresh, everything was organic, everything was of the highest quality. And then when I came here to the US in my 20s, I was kind of astounded by the way people went shopping. They'd take their giant station wagons back in the 60s, those are huge cars, and they would just fill up their cars with groceries and frozen things, and then they would put things in the freezer, and it was just a totally different scene for me, and one that I really didn't relate to. Now, I'm a chef and a biologist, and I lived in Santa Barbara for many years, and I taught cooking classes through the community college, and I taught a couple classes at the Santa Barbara County Jail. And I worked with the inmates who were assigned to the kitchen. And I remember one day a bunch of us were standing around watching one of the inmates change out the grease in the deep fat fryer. And I said to the kitchen manager, "So what happens with all this grease? Do you just pour it down the drain?" And he said, "No, there's a truck that comes by once a week or so and picks up the grease, and they take it and they create biofuel from that." And I thought, well, that's great that they're recycling it. And I kind of jokingly said to the kitchen manager, "Hey, Art, you could take that home and run your car on this for a couple weeks." And he looked at me, he was horrified. And he said, "Oh no, I wouldn't put that in my car." And the ironic thing is, he was willing to put that into his body every single day, that grease. And it just got me thinking about an analogy between cars and bodies. I know it's kind of simplistic, but when you think about it, you're driving your car and it starts to make funny noises, and you go to the mechanic, and the mechanic says, "Oh, well, you need a new clutch, or you need to have the transmission rebuilt." Well, that's a pretty simple thing when it's your car. But think about it when you go to the doctor and your doctor says, "Hey, your liver is totally shot, you need a new liver." Well, that's a very complicated thing. Getting replacement parts for the car is pretty easy. Or your mechanic might even say to you, "Well, you've got 250,000 miles on this thing. It's time for a new model." You cannot do that with your body. So why do people take better care of their cars than they do their bodies? I think of my body as my vehicle, and it's actually the place where I live. And if I didn't have my body, I wouldn't be able to move around. I wouldn't be present in this plane. So I actually think of my body sort of like an RV. And so we have to take care of our RVs, right? And it matters very much what quality foods that you put in your body, just the way it matters what quality oil and gasoline you put into your car. If you put in an inferior product in your car and you gum up the engine, you might have to have the whole engine rebuilt. But when you do that to your body, you live with a really difficult, challenging condition for the rest of your life.